Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst for 13th of August 2024, where we will be discussing 9 most important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express. In the very first article, we will be looking into the raging protests against the rape offence that took place in the country and the various aspects of rape as an offence in the country. In the next article, we will be looking into an editorial talking on the disinformation, the role of artificial intelligence and the various cyber security challenges around the entire world. In the third article, we will be looking into the National Commission for Allied and Healthcare Professionals Act 2021 and the Supreme Court observations regarding the same. In the fourth article, we will be looking into the recent reports of the retail inflation in the country following the CPI inflation. And finally, we will be also discussing about the science behind comets and the history regarding calendars. And we'll be concluding this discussion with Prelims Snippets, where we'll be discussing 4 more important articles from Prelims point of view, where we'll be understanding news in shorts. So stay tuned. Hello students, I hope you all are doing well. So with this, we'll be starting the very first article, and this article is a very serious one and also a very important article for your not only for UPSC examination purposes, but also for all of you to get aware of the things that are happening and the violence that are taking place against women in our country. And this is where the recent context of a 31-year-old junior doctor, she was found dead in the hall of a very famous Kolkata hospital known as Arjikar. And right now the protests are ongoing in the not only in the city of Kolkata but also entire country. And here the Chief Minister of the state of West Bengal has actually declared a deadline of finding the main culprits of the crime. So here in this article, we'll be looking into the various aspects of rape offense in the country and the various data, statistics, issues way forward that must be going actually be taken up by the main authorities, and also very relevant for your examination when we talk about prelims, where we have to look at the various sections of Indian polity and governance. We have to discuss about role of women and women's organization in GS1, and also in the GS2 paper we have to look into the various government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and also the issues arising out of those interventions. So here will be actually be looking into the most heinous offense in our society ever, that is the offense of rape, which involves forced sexual intercourse including vaginal, anal or oral penetration without the consent of the victim. And this is not a new offense. This has been an offense which has been seen in the pages of our history in the contemporary times flowing on to our present times, where we look at this map of the country, where we see almost all of the states in the country. The data for Jammu and Kashmir is not available for our perusal, but we can see that for the rest of the country, all of the states are embroiled in this particular offense. And we find that according to 2019 data, we find over 32,000 women were raped in the country by 2019, and half of the reported crimes have actually come from the states like Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, West Bengal and Madhya Pradesh. So we find that this is actually the most violent of crimes taking place against women, apart from some other instances according to NCRB 2022 report, where we find the most of the crimes against women actually take place in form of cruelty by husband and his relatives, right? Then we have kidnapping and abduction, we have assault to outrage modesty of women, and also we take the case of rape, which is accounting for 7.11% of all the violence against women. Well, we find that most of these offenses, right, the 3 offenses apart from rape, these are mostly reported, but we find that the figure of rape is low at 7.1 because we know that in India most of the rape offenses go unnoticed, right? Because of the heinousness of the very social stigma of this particular offense. And we understand that according to the BNS, right, according to the BNS provisions, this has been criminalized according to section 64. Now in the comment section, can anyone tell me under which section of the IPC the rape provisions were criminalized? And here we find that according to again the latest NCRB 2022 data that we have as of now, the highest number of cases registered against women, or the violence regarding the cases actually come from UP, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, West Bengal and MP, and also the violence of rape is also in the same order. And here when we look into the legal provisions against rape, right, the circumstances that has been quoted under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita is actually the various circumstances enlisted here. For example, if any offense is taken against any of these things listed here, that would be counted as rape, such as forced sexual intercourse against the woman will or without her own consent, and maybe sometimes the consent has been taken through fear, intimidation, fear of death, right, threat to life, not only against the death of the particular victim, but also their her own relatives or friends and family members, right. It is also sometimes carried out through impersonation of husband and say close partners. It is also sometimes the perpetrators of the crime sometimes take the consent in a different in a different way of actually say slipping drugs to women, right, making them alcoholic, or even sometimes they force mentally incapable women into rape. And also the minor victims are also seen in cases of rape, right. So these are the provisions under BNS, right. The next legal provisions that we see is under a very strict Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013, where these particular changes were recommended particularly after the Delhi gang rape of 2012. Now I hope that you all know about the particular case. If you don't know, you can actually watch a very good and a very striking web series that is known by Delhi Crime. So if you have watched, you let me know in the comments what exactly are the main things you have learned from that. And also you all will be becoming future IPS officers, IAS officers, and the leaders of the nation tomorrow. So you need to also look out for such interactive media where you will be actually learning how to actually deal with such offenses in the real basis. And this is where such web series, such good multimedia options can be better for you to actually understand the entire scenario, right. Now, under this Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013, the minimum sentence for such offences were raised from 7 years to 10 years, along with life imprisonment if that offensive rape is actually resulting in murder and death of the victim. And also for gang rape provisions, the minimum sentence was raised to 20 years of imprisonment, and along with life imprisonment can be also option, right. Now, apart from this, new definitions of rape and violence against women were broadened to include stalking, acid attacks, and voyeurism, such as following the woman and so on, right? Then, under the protection of children from sexual offences, POCSO Act, that is also alternatively known as, of 2012, the age of consent were explicitly defined for minor girls to be 18 years, right? And any sexual activity below the age of 18 years are criminalized irrespective of the consent, right? So this is where we have to be aware of. Apart from this, the various rights of the rape victim include zero FIR, which actually means that the victim can go to any police station in the country to report a rape offense. It doesn't matter if that police station or say the location of the crime is within the same jurisdiction or not. So this refers to zero FIR. Next, the victim is also entitled to have free medical treatment according to their relative discretion, according to the immediate medical emergency, right? Also, the victim is insured against two-finger test, which is a very stereotypical test performed earlier, used to be performed by medical practitioners to actually look into the previous sexual behavior of a particular girl or a woman. So this is also not allowed right now. This is also not allowed for any doctor to carry out, right? And also, according to various Supreme Court judgments and cases, right, the right to compensation according to say various legal aids, right, legal fees, the various medical expenses, the various other expenses have to be also be undertaken by the government. And we have all these offenses, we also have all these various law provisions, but These law provisions have actually came from various important Supreme Court judgments in the past. The very first case which actually shook the entire country was the Mathura rape case, where in this particular rape case, the main crime perpetrators or the same criminals were allowed to walk free. And this is when in the Tukaram and Ganpat versus the state of Maharashtra 1972 case, the Supreme Court took very serious concern of the rape violence cases or sexual violence cases taking place in the country. And this was actually one of the very first cases at Supreme Court which highlighted the need for law and order with reference to decrease criminal offences particular to this particular offence. In the next, the state of Punjab versus Gurmeet Singh 1984, right, the Supreme Court focused on the act of rape rather than the various allegations on the nature and the character of the woman. The Supreme Court told that this particular code, the nature and character of woman that incites sexual behavior, is very stereotypical of a patriarchal society where the society believes that the male have control over women's body. So this is where the Supreme Court rebuked the society and also the various appellants in this case that you have to focus on the act of rape. That is what constitutes a criminal offense rather than going into irrelevant discussion on the woman and her personal life, right? Next, in the Delhi Domestic Working Women versus Union of India case of 1995, the Supreme Court actually gave detailed guidelines into the various rising incidents of rape offences, where the Supreme Court told that the victims will be having this following rights and also the guidelines with reference to rape. For example, the anonymity of the victim has to be ensured, right? Then the legal representation must be given with proper amount of compensation in each and every aspect. Right, the victim must be informed of the rights because it has been noticed that sometimes the victims, their family members do not even know about their own rights. So this is where the Supreme Court told that the guidelines is to ensure this. Next, there must be adequate compensation and also a criminal injuries compensation board should be established to provide financial assistance to rape victims. So also for those of you who are writing mails, you can actually include these points with reference to the various provisions that should be taken in favor of women. Next, there should be speedy trials in the country to expedite rape cases. Medical care and attention must be given to the rape victims. Counseling and support to the rape victims and also the immediate family members, extended family members must be there to actually support them in these times of adversity. And finally, police sensitivity training must be given because we know from not only from Bollywood depictions but also from our day-to-day life that police perception is not positive in the society. People fear the police than rather respect the police, and that is why one of the main causes why rape cases are underreported is that the police do not seem to accept the cases up front. And also there are very political factors on the play due to which police sometimes do not even take cognizance of the matters. So that is why police sensitivity training and the various gender stereotypes must be well educated in this particular matter. Next, in the B. Gautam versus Shubhra Chakraborty case of 1996, the Supreme Court noted that an interim compensation during the legal process must be given to the women victims. And finally, under the Chairman Railway Board versus Chandrima Das 2000 case of Supreme Court, the compensation based on human rights should be provided. That was the main call of the Supreme Court. So we understand right now whatever legal provisions we have, this is actually a result of the detailed Supreme Court deliberations over a period of time starting from 1972. And here we have to understand why this particular devil is not going away till now. Firstly, we understand that India is deeply still, sadly, regrettably, right, stubbornly a patriarchal society as of now, right? We understand that various sections of the population still think that the male population have control over the women's body and their own choices. So this is actually one of the biggest reason. And under this only we find that in a patriarchal society, the blame always goes to the girl, to the woman, right? And this is because of the inherent, deeply entrenched patriarchal mindsets in our minds, right? So this is what we have to understand. The victim is always the woman, right, in this particular cases. Next, we find that the lack of education and awareness is also a very important one, because at our schools, at our colleges, we were very shy, and also the teachers, the education system, they were also very shy in teaching and making us aware of the sex education principles. This is where we find that a culture of shyness, of being silent, has crept into our mindset, and this is what leads to large amount of underreporting and a culture of silence. Right? Then we understand that in some areas of the country, right, the law enforcement is very weak, particularly in the rural India. Right? We find that in the apart from the rural areas, right, in the urban areas also, law enforcement is not that great, apart from the stringent provisions that we have. Next is the result of social stigma, where the honor, the shame, everything is the responsibility of the woman, of the girls, of our country. It is actually very shameful to actually for me to also say that whenever such incidents happen, the families of the of the women, of the victim, they feel they are responsible. The victims, they feel that they were responsible since they had the say so-called courage to step out of their house and work and so on. So you find that this is the culture that is at particular blame here. Next, also there have been many cases it has been seen that the victims were actually married to the criminals to actually legitimize the rape. Why? Because simply their daughters or say their relatives, they cannot step out of their home if they are rape victim. Right? So this is where this same aspect we find the patriarchal mindset is almost seen in each and every point. Right? Next, we also find that the most of the victims of this particular offense is generally from the lower sections of the population belonging to the lower income class. So this is where we also have to understand the economic disparities is also highly perpetuated. Next, we find the representation of vulgarity of women, the less or say the lack of spine of various famous Bollywood celebrities in actually taking up the case from their own side, right? The lack of role model in the media is also resulting in this particular aspect, right? Well, we also find the issues of caste and gender intersectionality also seen, where it has been seen and also reported in the NCRB data that women from ST, SC, minority communities are more vulnerable for this particular offense than the other sections of the population. So caste has also to play in particular states of the country. Next, there is a normalization of violence based from the patriarchal society. Normalization means that domestic violence based on say the immediate husband or say husband's mothers and fathers as his in-laws. So that violence is also normalized, right? And also we find that marital rape, which is actually a very important subtopic under this case only, this is also not criminalized in India, apart from actually being criminalized in developed countries such as US, right? In some states of the US. So we find that marital rape is also kind of normalized in the country. So these are all the things that is actually resulting into devil not going away. Next, we obviously need to know what are the way forward, what are the reforms that we need in the society. Firstly, we need more fast-track courts to be set up to expedite the matters, and we need stricter implementation of the laws in every hook and nook of our cities, in our villages, right? This is where we need the thing. Then it has also been seen in many rape cases that the witness in particular offenses, they are afraid to speak against this violence, while they themselves go on to file the FIR. But when the court trial comes, they back out. Why? Due to political pressures, due to money buying power. So this is where the witness protection scheme must also be enhanced. Then the various victim support mechanisms, as legal aid, fees and fines, moral support, counseling, they must also be taken forward. Next and biggest reform must be coming from the police and the judicial reforms. Firstly, there must be increased female representation in the police forces, because we understand that obviously the female police forces would be more sensitive towards such issues, and in the handling of these issues, in registering the FIR, in actually being the interface between say the particular crime. Next, there is a need for thorough gender sensitization education among the police forces. Next, we need educational reforms where we need to normalize sex education. Sex education involves actually teaching the various students from say the beginning of from the beginning of class 6 to around class 10 about the various offenses that are related to women, right? And also the various normalcies that are actually present in between female and male bodies. So these are the things that actually need to be normalized, and this is actually being actually a very successful model in the Scandinavian countries, where we find that in these particular countries, due to enhanced sex education, the overall awareness also has increased, not only regarding the various biological differences, but also regarding the rights and legal remedies for the women. Right. Along with this, we also need various social reforms from the NGOs, from the civil society, where we have seen various reform movements trending on Twitter, such as #MeToo movement, Time's Up. So these things must be carried on in a fair manner, right? Then there must be economic empowerment of the women through more participation of the women in the Indian labor force, such as promotion of more and more self-help groups, and also the promotion of schemes such as Stand Up India, where women are actually given loans to actually start up business or entrepreneurial enterprises. So we need a better participation of women, particularly in rural areas. And finally, we need to blend technology and innovation, where we have to set up, and we have actually set up many hotlines and helplines. Can you in the comment let me know one or two hotlines that you know? If you do not know, definitely be so try to know it and let me know in the comment section, right? We have to set up more and more personalized mobile applications. We have to actually look into various ways in which we can blend technology and women's safety. And this was the topic in its totality. And after this, I want all of your opinions in the comments. What India must be doing in this particular offense that took place at RG in Kolkata to actually ensure that such things never happen in the future. I need all of your participation, along with a sample question from my side that goes on to: the prevalence of rape poses significant challenges to life and liberty of Indian women. Highlighting the legal provisions against the same, discuss the challenges and strategies required to fight this menace. So I'm waiting for all your opinions in the comment section. In the next article, we'll be looking into a very sinister case of disinformation along the blend of artificial intelligence and the cyber chakravyuh, according to this editorial by noted columnist and editor known as M.K. Narayan. Now, all the articles by Mr. M.K. Narayan is extremely important in the areas of internal security, cyber security, and so on, right? Because he was actually the national security advisor. And for those who are appearing for mains, it goes without saying that you can actually use their own opinion in your answers, and also you can quote them in your answers too, right? So there is a rising concern of new threats posed by artificial intelligence and its various manifestations, such as disinformation, deepfakes, and so on. Very important topic for your prelims, where we have to discuss about general science and also about GS3, basics of cybersecurity. And here, when we talk about disinformation and its latest manifestation in the world right now, the latest is the 2024 Olympics that concluded just yesterday. The closing ceremony was yesterday, and from the open ceremony and even the times before the open ceremony, there were many apprehensions that there could be many cyber attacks based from countries such as Belarus, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, right? Even some movements, some fringe elements of hacktivists, right? Mainly from the Russian groups, and also financially motivated threats, right? Where they were actually anticipated to be using many ransomware, amounts of viruses on this particular mega event that actually took place in Paris 2024 Olympics. While this particular threat on a major global event, we can understand, we can pause for a moment and think that if such a big global event were actually being targeted, and if the authorities, they were themselves anticipating some security threat, then we can understand that everyday places such as airports, such as banks, hospitals, they can easily be targeted. And this is where we have to understand that this particular cyber attack or threat did not materialize due to heavy amount of surveillance, vigilance during the Olympics. This is what resulted in the coordination of international efforts into this particular Olympics and to prevent any kind of cyber attacks. But we have to understand that not always we find this kind of readiness when we talk about cyber security in various daily aspects of our life. So this is where we have to understand the important aspect of cyber security, right? And we can understand that Indian businesses, according to report, right, Indian businesses face over 3,000 cyber attacks per week, right? Second only to Taiwan firms. So we understand not only Paris Olympics, but also Indian businesses over a year and over daily, over weeks, over months, they face cyber security threats. Then we also saw recently, yesterday, right, that actually the interview between Elon Musk and Trump was scheduled, and that was also delayed due to cyber security aspect. So you also understand how not only economically they can hurt, or say the cyber attacks they can hurt, but also politically the entire discourse can be tilted towards a particular political party and so on with reference to a particular cyber attack. So this is where we need to look into the persistent cyber security threats that is ruining our world right now. Firstly, we have ransomwares, where a most famous example of ransomware is WannaCry, where the main perpetrators, where the main cyber criminals, they demand some ransoms from the people. We also have phishing and social engineering, where the particular criminals, they send random emails, random SMSs to actually generate personal information. We also have various supply chain attacks on important terminals such as airports, right, railways, ports, and also hospitals, education services, banks, that can actually, we understand, if they go down, the entire globe will be going down, right? We also have advanced persistent threats that generally come from states such as North Korea, China, Russia, right, where they target a long network of power supply of a particular country or airport of a particular country, right? These are prominently derived by the state. And also we have the new technology of artificial intelligence, machine learning in this kind of attacks, where we understand the generative AI and artificial general intelligence, that is actually the next form of general intelligence, right, general AI. We find that they will actually be making it much more easier to have automated, fast and speedy attacks, where the government authorities, they could not even get time to recover their lost assets, right? Then also we find that right now the cyber criminals, they are actually spreading disinformation using AI, and particularly there are rising instances of deepfake, which is actually a form of machine learning only, where a particular video is actually morphed, right, and where another person can be seen with another different voice, but it will be sounding very legitimate with the particular audience, right? So this is the threat that is going on. Next, we have the Internet of Things. For example, this watch, this pen, and the various electric light bulbs, the smart televisions and so on, right? These particular electronic items are becoming prevalent in our lives, and that is where we also understand the cyber criminals. They are also gaining more access to our data, to our privacy aspects here, right? So operations and so on of various particular companies, they also run on IoTs. So this is where the security is also at risks. Then we have the cloud data with reference to our photos, videos and so on. These are also being targeted particularly prominently when we talk about very big companies such as Google and Meta. They are also not vulnerable, safe from the cyber attacks that are ongoing. Next, we also have cryptojacking, where the use of cryptocurrencies and the various elements of attacking cryptocurrencies with reference to various people's wallets, with reference to cryptocurrencies, they are also being seen right now. And finally, we have also insider threats, where insiders such as an army professional in the Indian Army, they can even pose a significant threat if that person is disclosing sensitive hardware, sensitive software to our enemy nations or to our, say, aggressive countries. So this is where we have found that there are many stakeholder sources of cybersecurity threats. There can be criminal groups, nation states such as countries, corporate spies, malicious insiders can be there, activists or groups of people who actually tend to reform the global world order, and terrorist groups and the hackers, right? And this is where we have to also concentrate on the disinformation aspect and its impact on the global security. And we have to understand disinformation right now is actually defined as the thin line between misinformation and malinformation, where disinformation is fabricatedly deliberated, manipulated audio-visual record content that is intentionally created to actually give way to many rumors and conspiracy theories, right? So this is actually being attributed to some countries such as China, to some countries such as Russia, who is actually challenging the current world order where the US is having the greater hegemony, right? With reference to recent reports, we also find that China recently bombarded Taiwan with fake news ahead of their elections to actually subvert their elections and tilt the favor in favor of China. This is taking place in every country, even in the Russia-Ukraine crisis. We also find many fake news, many fake videos with reference to Russia or Ukraine, which is actually being fueled by the various external states. The main objective with reference to this disinformation is to destabilize governments, as simple as that. It's actually to topple the political course, to military course, economic course. It is to actually influence the public opinion, right? It is actually to sway the public opinion on social media so that their opinions change and the other countries will be gaining, right? It is also to create internal divisions within the countries themselves, right? So this is where the main aspect of disinformation is, we have to understand, is very, very dangerous, right? The main challenges of combating disinformation is actually the lag. For example, say China has actually bombarded Taiwan with fake news. So this took place on 1st of January, right? And it was later known on 20th of January that this was fake news. But between this 20 days, already the damage has done. The public opinion has been damaged. The political class has been questioned, even if they have not done anything wrong. So this is where this lag is very dangerous. And between this lag only, the external state actors, external countries, they try to do the maximum damage, right? And the damage to public perception is almost permanent. And also this thing is more weaponized right now with AI using deepfakes, right? With using technologies which will be actually be carrying out automated attacks on the other countries with many amount of deepfakes and so on, right? So this is where we have to actually focus on what India has done with reference to strengthen the cyber security in the country. So firstly, we have policies regarding to cyber security. For example, firstly, we have the legislation, the most important legislation as of now, the IT Act 2000, where we have several penalties for cyber attacks and the various provisions against insurance of various amount of important government authorities and terminals against cyber attacks. We also have the National Security Policy 2013, where we have the detailed provisions of the various threats, classifications and so on. We have the Indian Cyber Crime Coordination Center, which actually tries to on every Wednesday of every week have this Cyber Jagrukta Divas to actually spread awareness about the increasing nature of cyber activities, cyber criminals in the country, right? Apart from this, this also tried to bring in coordination between the various, say, state governments, say the various police forces, various investigative or agencies in cyber chakravyuh. We also have the Crime and Criminal Tracking Network and Systems, which is an online network on which almost all of the police stations of the country have access to the various criminal records and so on. And also this is where the cyber security aspirations are also taken care of. Next, we have the National Cyber Crime Reporting Portal. That is a digital portal where the citizens can go and file regarding the various cyber offenses, frauds that are taking place. We also have the CERTIN, or Computer Emergency Response Team India, which is a very, very important agency looking into the aspect of cyber security, reporting of the crime, and also the emergency responses to various ransomware attacks, virus attacks, and the various big kind of, say, disinformation attacks and so on. Then also we have the National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center, where the critical information infrastructure in the country, such as airports, railways, power plants and various other sensitive critical equipments, infrastructure, they are protected, and also looked into the various offenses. Next, we have the Cyber Surakshit Bharat initiative to actually spread more and more awareness for the citizens to be safe digitally online. We have the Cyber Swachhta Kendra, which is actually also known as Botnet Cleaning and Malware Analysis Center, which is actually looking into the detection of various botnet, botware, malware on our computers, phones, and so on, and also spreading awareness and the various legal enforcements again the same. And finally, if and when the Personal Data Protection Act, right now it is a bill, will be passed, that will be a significant legislation to actually protect the data privacy, right, and actually give various digital rights according to the European Union Digital Act. So this is where the Indian nation is also going forward with reference to such offenses. The way forward right now for India is actually to understand the various threats that are happening right now, right? And this is where Indian government must also look at social engineering, at good and positive public social engineering, where we have to understand that we have to, as a nation, have a mix of good policies that bound, that actually bounded on rational policies on cyber security and emotional policies also, right? We have to be wise in actually implementing strong password policies if we talk about individuals ourselves, right? If we set strong passwords, if we have good habits online, right? If we are cautious about unsolicited emails on calls and so on, this is what will be actually be benefiting us. So Indian government must be spreading this awareness more and more in the digital media and the social media handles and everywhere, so that people themselves be aware in the very first place. Next, we have to obviously understand the importance of legislation and policy, where the policies on emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, they have to be framed, where a particular AI Act can be deliberated as similar again to the provisions of European Union, where they have the EU AI Act, where they have various grades of AI offenses and regulations. The same can be implemented in the country, right? Then we need to develop various amount of cyber security protocols, combat disinformation, and the various rules and regulations regarding the same. It is preferably better that we amend the IT Act, because various of the emerging criminal offenses on the cyberspace, they are not updated in this particular act. So this can be thought on. Then obviously we have to enact the Personal Data Protection Act, where a significant amount of digital rights will be given to the citizens. Then the role of the private sector is very important in actually investing, and also the role of startups. The role of startups, which can actually give their own cyber security insights, role and advisory position to the government of India, and both in PPP model, right, public-private partnership model, the government and the private, public sector, public and the private sector, they can actually enhance the cyber security efforts. Then there must be coordination efforts against the digital threats, starting from the state police, right, to the various investigative authorities in the countries, to even the various armed forces in the country, right? So everyone must be coordinating on the various threats at immediate basis, at an emergency basis. Along with the same, we also need international collaboration with reference to various laws, regulations, and the same. Next, obviously, last but not least, we have actually understood the importance of social engineering, where the people themselves must be aware of the various cyber security threats and challenges, and they must be taking steps on their own basis to be secure online. And with reference to this, we have a PYQ from 2022 mains. What are the different elements of cyber security? In the comment section, can you let me know 2 to 3 elements of cyber security that you think are important? And keeping in view the challenges in cyber security, examine the extent to which India has successfully developed a comprehensive national cyber security strategy. So here, please do use the examples that we have given, the case studies that we have given, the main issues that we have discussed about disinformation, AI, machine learning, and so on, defects, to frame your answers. In the next one, we'll be looking into the recent Supreme Court wrapping of the, central government via the National Commission for Allied and Health Care Professionals Act 2021, where the Supreme Court has actually come to, brought to the notice of the central government and the state governments that almost all the states and the central government has not implemented this act. While this act was passed in 2021, even right now, 3 years have passed, implementation has not been done. And this is what we'll be discussing for our prelims, Indian polity and governance, and for GS2, various statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies, because this National Commission for Allied and Healthcare professions, this is actually a statutory body in the country right now. Earlier, we have to understand there were no particular statute law for this kind of body. Now firstly we have to understand what are allied and healthcare professions. Now allied and healthcare professions belong to the class of, say, trauma burn care professionals, physiotherapy professionals, nutrition science professionals, ophthalmy, health and information management, or say for example say medical radiology imaging, that we actually do CT scan, MRI scans and so on, medical laboratory sciences professional. So these are all not doctors, these are all not particularly hospitals, these are some separate services that you need apart from hospitals and the various clinics in the country. So these are allied services that you need apart from hospitals, say public and private hospitals, right? So this is where we have to understand this is a very big field, and there must be a particular law to regulate all of them. So this is this particular law. Earlier there was actually a non-statutory institution which was looking onto the regulation aspect of the same, and also the various states have had various state related body regarding the regulation of these bodies. But right now, to actually have a say overall national body to look into the regulation aspect of the allied health workforce in the country, the country actually bought this act, where the main features of the act, firstly we have to understand the allied health professional and the healthcare professional were defined, where the allied health professionals generally belong to, say, radiology or medical laboratory sciences professionals and so on, where there are various other professionals also where they have to be, say, associated, they can be a technician, they can be associate, or they can be technologist. They must be having a degree, they must be having a diploma, where they must have studied at least 2000 hours for a period of 3 to 6 years to get their degree. So this is certifying their education qualification to actually look into the nature, or say the look into the various aspects of fake degrees in the medical field. Next, we also find the healthcare professional must be a scientist, must be a therapist, or any other professional apart from the allied health professional, who must be having a degree that has been obtained in, say, more than 3600 hours, and say have been obtained between, say, 3 to 6 years. While these hours and years are not important, this is actually specified that there are two classes of healthcare professionals, both allied and healthcare professionals. Next, the allied and healthcare professions are belonging to the life sciences, trauma, burn, surgical, anesthesia, physiotherapies, nuclear sciences, and the various other which have been specified by the government of India in this list. You do not have to memorize all the list, just note how they're different from doctors and nurses. Right? So we find that there is also a state council set by this, where there will be a chairman, there will be one person from the state medical sciences, 2 members from the representing the state medical college, right? 2 members from the professions that has been listed here, right? And this particular chairperson, that person must be having more than 20 to 25 years of experience in this particular domain, right? Where these state councils will be adhering to or say formulating a particular code of ethics that need to be followed by these professionals. There need to be state registers, and regular inspection and uniform entry and exit examinations must be taken place with reference to the particular allied health professionals. Then the establishment of institutions will be granted after the prior permission of the state council. Any new institutes, courses, or admission capacity of this particular institutes must be taken prior conference of the state councils. And the offences and penalties go up to 50,000 rupees in contravention of any provision of this particular act. Next, the main statutory body which was made statutory is the National Commission for Allied and Healthcare Professionals. As we find, this particular act was passed in 2021, and this commission will be consisted of chairperson and vice chairperson, 5 members that will be at the level of joint secretary from the various government central departments and ministries, right? 1 member will be from the Directorate General of Health Sciences, 3 deputy directors or the medical superintendents will be appointed from big reputed government or private medical institutions such as AIIMS, right? And 12 part-time members from the various professions, from the various notified professions will be also be nominated, right? And finally, when we have to look into the functions of the commission, we have to look at that they are actually framing the policies and the standards at the national level, right? Then they will be also regulating the education and practice of the various institutes which will be imparting the allied and professional services in this particular aspect. Then there has to be an online central register of all the registered professionals to actually have compliance with reference to various rules and regulations in this particular sector, and also to look into the various penal offences in reference to any contravention of the provisions. Then the basic standards of education, courses, staff qualifications, examination, training, maximum fee that is must be paid to the institutions, they will also be framing the rules. That is, the national commissions will be framing the rules on the same. National Commission for Allied and Healthcare Professionals, they will be also looking into the uniform entrance and the exit examinations. And finally, they will be looking into the professional council. They will be actually setting up the professional council for every recognized category. So for every recognized, for example, say physiotherapy, medical imaging and so on, there will be a professional council looking into the various nitty-gritty daily aspects of the same. So here, what the Supreme Court in this JFMTI and others Union versus Union of India 2024 case said that right now we find that India is having lesser seats with reference to the various healthcare professionals. When we compare to Thailand and UK, we have lesser amount of specialized healthcare professionals in the country, right? Then also we see most of the demand and most of the pressure burden of these allied healthcare professionals or professions are falling on the public sector or the public hospitals, where the hospital staff, right, they are having more burden to deal with these allied services, where they can actually be delegated to other, say, private enterprise or say public enterprise, right? So this is where we understand the demand. This is the entire demand and this is the entire supply, right? So we find that the demand is much more than supply, right? And for this we had an act. We have an act of 2021, right? The Supreme Court told that these provisions have not been yet implemented. 14 out of the 28 states plus union territories, they did not even set up the state councils, let alone the center, right? We understand that there are right now growing number of unregulated institutes in the country related to allied health professionals and so on, which is leading into more expenditures of the people, right? And also this is leading to non-diagnosis of various diseases. This is leading to various non-medical practices, right, which is leading to various financial losses of the people. So this is where the Supreme Court directed the government, and this is very important, that there is a 2-month deadline that the government and central government and the state governments, they have to implement the law on a war footing. The union health secretary, they have to contact all the state secretary related to health to have a plan in effect, right, within a particular period of time, within the, up till the next hearing, where the Supreme Court will be seeking the details of the case. All the states must be setting up the required infrastructure related to the testing and the medical practices and also the allied health professional aspects. So this is a very important provision and particular act regarding this particular thing, and the Supreme Court has actually done a very good job in regulating the manner. And here there is a practice question for you all, because this is in the news. There is a high possibility that this question may be asked in the mains, right? The question is, National Commission for Allied and Health Professionals Act 2021 is a crucial step towards building a strong and efficient healthcare system in the country. Discuss. So you let me know whether the Supreme Court was actually being very pertinent in actually delivering the decision. And if you can look at this particular aspect, this was the earlier provision where we had various state paramedical councils, right, the National Initiative for Allied Health Services before this particular act. So in this answer, as a form of introduction, you can actually talk about what was the earlier structure that prevailed, right? And right now we have this particular act. You can actually also tell the areas in India which have disparities in the allied health professionals, right? So these are all for this particular article. In the next one, we'll be looking into the retail inflation, which has fallen near a 5-year low of 3.5% in July 2024. This is very important for the prelims, economic and social development, and for your GS3 Indian economy, where we have had various questions regarding the trends of inflation in the country. Now, firstly, we have to look at the very basics very quickly. See, consumer price index measures the average change of prices in the various commonly used goods and services by the consumers of the particular country, in our country, we have the CPI combined, we have CPI urban, we have CPI rural, which looks into the various aspects of commonly used goods and services by the consumers at the market, at the retail stores, right? So this is the inflation at the consumer side. Apart from this, we also have the wholesale price index, which measures inflation at the wholesale markets. The main difference between consumer price index and the wholesale price index, as we can see from this figure itself, right? Firstly, the amount of weightage that is given to food and beverage is much more greater, right, than the WPI, right? Secondly, we find that we have the services included in the CPI. We do not have any services included in the WPI. We have only inflation at the goods level in the WPI. At the WPI basket, we have fuel and power, primary articles, manufactured products. With reference to CPI, we have food and beverages, we have housing, we have fuel and light, we have clothing and footwear, pan and tobacco, and the various miscellaneous services and service such as education, health, and so on. So these are the various goods and services used by the people commonly. And we know that the CPI is actually released by the NSO under MOSPI, right? And the WPI is actually released by the Office of the Economic Advisor or to the DPIIT. And can you let me know in the comments under which ministry DPIIT is? Can you let me know in the comments? And when we look at the importance of CPI, we understand this is a key indicator of inflation because this is the inflation that is taking place at the marketplace. That is when you and me go to the marketplace, we buy various goods and services. So what is the price? What is the increase of price over a month? That is what CPI does, right? It also helps us adjusting the salaries, the wages, the pensions, and other social benefits to the people. We know over a period of time, inflation reduces the purchasing power of our currency. And over a period of time, we have to actually increase the people's wages to actually keep in pace with inflation, pensions, and various other social benefits. So CPI is actually very instrumental in revising all this, right? Then also, we know that the RBI has a target of maintaining inflation in the country at 4 plus minus 2. Ideally, the inflation must be at 4, but minimum it can go to 2%, maximum it can go to 6%. So this is where the CPI is also used by the Monetary Policy Committee of RBI to take monetary policy decisions, right? Now here, when we look at the recent observations in this particular report, we find that the CPI is at the low of 3.5%. But let us not be fooled by this data, because we find that in July 2023, if you look at this particular figure, CPI was high at above 6% rate. This is actually what we know as base effect, right? If we compare the CPI with reference to the last year and even with reference to last month, consumer prices were actually very high in the last year due to various other reasons, due to weather related events, supply chain related events, right? So this is where we understand the historical context, that is the last year, that we have a, this particular high base effect. And when we talk about historical context also, we have seen that this is the lowest in 5 years, right? From August 2019, right, to around say 2024, where it was earlier at 3.2%, is the lowest right now, right? So this is actually due to the high base effect, where we have to understand the food inflation in the country is actually very high. It's still at high, right, more than 3.5%. Even if we look at pulses and products, right, we have inflation at around 14.8%. Even when we look at cereals and products, we have at 8.2%, right? So we have this amount of change. Mainly the inflation, were brought down due to low amount of prices of spices, oil, fat, and fuel and light in this particular month, right? And also when we look at regional disparities, the rural and urban divide in food inflation is also very high, where the rural areas have higher inflation at 5.89%, right? Apart from the say urban inflation where we have 4.69%, right? Then when we look at core inflation, which is the total inflation, which is known as headline inflation minus the volatile substances such as food and fuel, right? And the various say volatile substances. So this is the food and fuel substances which are deducted from the headline inflation, where we get the core inflation. So core inflation also slightly increased to 3.4% in July, right? And here this is actually giving a sign of demand revival Why? Because maybe the core items are not the items such as smartphones, say commodities, say bed sheets, equipments, and so on. So it is actually saying that maybe people are demanding more of these common goods and services. That's why their prices are decreasing. Maybe this is actually telling also that incomes of the people are also increasing. That is why they are demanding more and more of these goods and services. And here I have a 2020 PYQ. You take your time, pause the screen, you let me know the answer in the comments below. Now in the next question, we have comets and calendars, because recently an ancient calendar has been found in Turkey, which is documented to be around 13,000 year old, because it is actually talking about a comet event that took place 13,000 years ago. First we will be looking into what are comets, then we will be looking at a brief history of the various calendars across the world. Firstly, when we talk about comets are known as dirty snowballs of space. These are formed from the remnants of the dust, of the very planetary dust, nebula dust that were formed or left over after the formation of our solar system. So these comets are generally, if we know that this is our solar system, these comets are generally present at the periphery of our solar system, at the outside. When we must not be confusing asteroids with comets. Asteroids are mainly predominant between Mars and Jupiter and various other instances also, but we find comets to be never near the planets. There are some occurrences when the comets come dangerously close to our sun and our solar system, then we get to see the comets, and these are beautiful astronomical phenomena where we see that this is the comet, right? And this orbit the sun in highly elliptical path. That means this orbit the sun in this manner, or one comet can be orbiting in this manner. That is why we find a comet can be seen after say 10 years or say if pardon me, after 100 years, say 2000 years, 10,000 years, and so on. So this is where these comets are seen so rarely because of their elliptical path. When we look at the structures, we have a particular say nucleus of the comet, which is a solid comet core, and this can be hidden by the coma. What is a coma? Coma is a vapor cloud which is surrounding the nucleus, and it is also held that comets contain ice or water ice, and this is also one of the theories how maybe a comet struck our earth and life originated on our earth, right? Along with this, the comet also have an hydrogen envelope which is invisible and irregular cloud surrounding the coma region, and we have then an iron tail like this which is separated from the dust tail. The iron tail is a trail of plasma streams from the solar storm when it approaches the sun, and we have a dust tail which is a trail of dust and gases generally in the direction of the solar wind when it approaches the sun. It is very important to know comets, because from the comets only we will be knowing the early solar system. Also we will be gaining a lot about climate change, because we can know about climate change after studying the comet trajectory and so on, and the results it had say billions of years ago, right, when it actually struck the earth. Then the origin of life can also be found out when we talk about say the possibility of a comet striking the earth at some point in the past. So this is why comets are very important for us to study. And not only we are studying the comets right now in 21st or say in 20th century from onwards, right? The ancient, our ancestors, they have also been studying comets, and this has been documented in this, Göbekli Tepe in South Turkey region, right, where we have seen this solar calendar. If you look at this, this is right now the earliest evidence of solar calendar, one of the earliest evidence in the world right now. So it was documented on one of these rocks that a particular comet passed, right? And the scientists have actually calculated, yes, that comet was actually being present during 13,000 years ago, roughly at around 10,850 BC, right? Apart from this, the most developed kind of solar calendars can be dated to ancient Egypt during 4241 BC, where 12 months of 30 days each were calculated during that time. Apart from this, we have progressed to Mesopotamia during 2000 BC, where we had for the one of the very first time the lunar and the solar calendars together, right? Then we moved on to the Roman Empire, during which the Julian calendar during 46 BCE was actually introduced, and this introduced for the very first time the concept of leap years, right? Then gradually we move on to the present day Gregorian calendar when we talk about the world context, where Pope Gregory XIII, he actually formulated this particular calendar, and there was actually an error in this Julian calendar where there was actually an error of 10 days. And this particular Gregorian calendars have subtracted the 10 days in October 1582. Right? That is where we have the Gregorian calendar as of now. It was introduced in 1582. Along with this, we also had the Mayan calendar, which was also a form of complex and sophisticated, highly accurate solar calendar. When we talk about the Indian calendars, we have the Vikram Samvat, which is a lunar calendar originated in 57 BC, named after King Vikramaditya, when he had victory over the Sakas. Now, can you in the comments let me know when the Sakas ruled in India and in which region of the country? Acha, it was also widely used in North India for religious, it's still now used in North India for religious and social purposes. The main key features are Shukla Paksh, Krishna Paksh, which respectively mean bright half and dark half, and also it had the concept of leap years, most importantly back in 57 BCE. After this, we have the Saka Samvat, which is actually the Indian national calendar, was adopted in 1957. Right? It is a solar calendar that started from 78 AD, introduced by the Saka rulers when they had victory over the Kushanas. And it was adopted as a national calendar in 1957, and it has 12 months and 365 days. And apart from this, there is also an Islamic calendar known as the Hijra or Hijri calendar, which is actually starting in the age of, 622, which is referring to the migration of Prophet Muhammad, right? So these are all the various things that you need to know with reference to the history of calendars. And with reference to this, I want all of you to let me know what is the difference between asteroids and comets in the comment section. Now, at the end, we'll be looking into the 4 prelim snippets, where we first will be looking into the recent NIRF ratings, and where we find that the IIT Madras is holding its first position again. It was launched in 2015 by the Ministry of Human Resource Development, and the main objective is to rank higher education institutions based on various parameters. What are the parameters? Teaching, learning and resources, research and professional practice, graduation outcomes, outreach, inclusivity and perception. And the various categories on which the rankings will be given will be overall category, university category, college category, management, engineering, pharmacy, law, medical, architecture, dental and research institutions. In the next one, we have looked into the various allegations against the SEBI chairperson, and where we'll be looking only into the allegation of short selling and the concept of the same. Now, to understand short selling, imagine that you are an investor, right? You are an investor here, and you expect, for example, a stock price that is at around 100 rupees right now. You expect that the price will be becoming low in the coming period. So what you do, you tell your stockbroker friend, this is a stockbroker friend of yours, to actually lend you some stocks. Maybe that broker lend you 10 shares worth 100 rupees each. Right now the market price is 100 rupees of the stock, and the person actually lent you, right? You borrowed 10 stocks from the particular broker. What you did immediately after borrowed, you sold the stocks. And when you sell the stocks, you know that you are increasing the supply than demand, and you know whenever the supply rises of any item, the prices decrease. So gradually you expected the prices of the stock to decrease, and it decreased. Say for example, it decreased to 50 rupees, and you do what? You have already sold the stocks, right? And right now what you are doing with this sell stocks, you are actually trying to buy back the stocks. You are trying to buy back the stocks at 50 rupees, right? When you are buying back the stocks at 50 rupees, you bought again 10 shares of 50 rupees each, and this is 500 rupees. And whatever money you borrowed, remember it was 1000 rupees. And right now what you do, you return this 500 rupees worth of stocks, or say 10 shares, to the stockbroker. Now you obviously understand the stockbroker suffered a loss of how much? 500 rupees, because he initially lent you 10 shares of 100 rupees. Right now the share is 50 rupees. Now the market value of the share is not your concern. You just borrowed it, right? So in the meantime, the stockbroker, the stockbroker suffered a loss, right? And what you did, you had a profit of 500 rupees when you sold this stock. So the margin you kept with yourself. This is what we know as short selling, which is a strategy where an investor borrows security and sells in the open market, expecting the price to decline. And then they buy back the security at lower price and return it to the lender, pocketing the difference as profit. Right? The SEBI does not outrightly ban short selling practices, but naked short selling, which is actually a practice when the investor sells a security without first arranging to borrow it, without even borrow it. If there are allegations of short selling it, then that is strictly prohibited in the country, right? And the mechanism we discussed in detail in this particular manner. In the next one, we'll be looking in the IIP, Index of Industrial Production. As you see, along with the decline in CPI, IIP is actually moderating, right? As we see, right, the mining sector, IIP, over the last time it has increased, right? Overall IIP has increased from 4.6 to 5, right? The manufacturing has actually decreased, right? And electricity, they have actually also decreased. It is only the mining sector that have registered an increase, and that has led to the overall increase. Now, what is the IIP? IIP is released monthly by the National Statistical Office. The base year is 2011-12, where the main components is to look into what is the increase in production in the mining sector, manufacturing sector, and the electricity sector. The manufacturing sector is the highest weightage in the IIP. Alongside the IIP, we have some 40% of some sectors such as refinery, electricity, steel, coal, crude oil, natural gas, cements, and fertilizers, which are actually known as 8 core sectors within the IIP itself, right? Do not confuse it with the 8 core sector industries index. That is a different one, right? Here we are talking about the index of IIP and the 8 core sectors within the same, right? Finally, we'll be concluding with UNESCO Kalinga Prize. The main purpose is to award outstanding contributions to popularization of science, where the particular awardee will be getting 40,000 USD. And this particular medal, where we had the name of Einstein Silver Medal, and the particular people who will be winning this particular prize, they will be getting Ruchi Ram Sahni Chair and a particular obligation to come to India and deliver lectures. Right? This is actually awarded by UNESCO, and the origin was that it was established in 1951 following a donation from Bijoyanand Patnaik, and this was the foundation. He was actually the foundation of Kalinga Foundation Trust India, and it is very significant because it is the UNESCO's oldest prize and a prestigious recognition for science communications, right? And here we find the first recipient was Louis D. Broggie. And can you let me know in the comments who was he and what was his contributions for the same? As you can see, the last prize winners were belonging from Mexico, France, and so on. And there is no Indians from 2013 to 2023. And also we see there is a gap of 2 years between every prize event. And with this, I wish you all the best and thank you for being a very patient audience. Please do attempt the quiz which is following up. Till we meet again, thank you and best of luck.